Friends, let's give some tzedakah. As it says, tzedakah tatil mimoves. Charity protects us, saves us from death. Now what that means, not just we're talking about the simple meaning of death, but it also means death is exile. Death is synonymous with being in exile. Once we're coming out of exile, there will be the time of Tchias HaMeisa with Mashiach. Death will no more exist. As we actually say, Yibol HaMoves Lo Netzach. May death be forever eradicated. Why? Because it's going to be the time of Vaychi, eternal life. Which brings us to the parsha of this week. Vaychi Yaakov Be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana. Yaakov, the Torah tells, lived in Egypt 17 years, and the commentators, Balaturim says, his best life of his years. His best years, of his life, were those 17 years, 17 corresponding to the Hebrew word of Tov, Tes, Vav, Beis, total of 17. Why were these his best years? Because when Yaakov saw HaYosef, notwithstanding his challenges, raised children, Menashe and Ephraim, as he himself says, Lihem, they're like my own children, and in fact, he elevated them to the status of equal to the Shvatim. He made Yosef two tribes, the tribe of Menashe and the tribe of Ephraim. And then he saw, while he was those 17 years in Egypt, how his other children, how all the tribes raised their children in the ways of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's his best years. Because that's what Yaakov is all about. Assuring future generations to go in the ways of Yaakov, to go in the ways of Yitzchak, to go in the ways of his grandfather Avraham. But then the Torah tells us an interesting little anecdote. Yosef comes to brings his two sons to Yaakov for them to be blessed. The oldest one, Menashe, he puts him on the right side of his father. And the younger one, Ephraim, he puts him on the left side of his father. But then Yosef notices how his father puts his right hand on the head of the younger one, Ephraim, and his left hand on the older one, Menashe, and he tells his father, Menashe is the oldest one. Thinking maybe that his father is not seeing well because he was already elderly. So Yaakov says, I'm aware, but I want to give the first blessing to Ephraim. Why? Let us look a moment, the name Menashe and the name Ephraim, what they represent. They're not just two names. They represent something specific in Yosef's life and in Yosef's success. So the Torah tells us that he called Menashe, the firstborn Menashe. Why? Ki nashani Elokim es kol amoli. Because God made me forget all my pain and also my father's home. Menashe represents Yaakov's quest not to forget his father's home. Even while in Egypt, I still want to be connected. I still want to behave and raise my children. Although it's a moment that I could forget, no, I want to stay with it. Ephraim represents, as the Pasuk says, he called them Ephraim, ki Ifrani Elokim beretz anyi, because I became successful, I became fruitful in the place of my suffering. So Menashe represents the past, the home of Yaakov. Ephraim represents Egypt and the success in Egypt. Yaakov is going to bless us. Yaakov is going to bless whom? The generation that is going to have to battle, that is going to be challenged by Egypt. The generation which is going to be challenged by the severity, the difficulties of Egyptian exile. And he sees further our exile, where we are being challenged already for 2,000 years. So Yaakov is giving us the blessing that we should be able to stand firm, to overcome all these difficulties and the challenges of exile, of the darkness, and bring in light. Because that's our ultimate task, to bring light into exile, to transform the exile into light, which is what Ephraim represents. So Yaakov gives the first blessing to Ephraim because we desperately need this blessing. But the result is all going to be what? Menashe. Menashe, which represents Beis Avi, my father's home. What is Yaakov's home? So we know Yaakov's home is the third Bet HaMikdash. Avraham brings the first, Yitzchak the second Bet HaMikdash, and Yaakov the third and eternal Bet HaMikdash. Just like Yaakov himself represents eternal life, he brings the ultimate home. So this is the blessing that Yaakov gave to Ephraim first with his right hand, for us to realize that we have all the capabilities and the strength. Thus, we must overcome the challenge, transform this exile, and come home to Beis Avi, to my father's home, Yerushalayim, the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbeinu Shalom. Today is the perfect day for that.